Hey guys, so I want to talk to you about a case that was dubbed Who Put Bella Down the Witch Elm. It's a very intriguing case involving an unidentified woman in Worcestershire. Now, this has never been solved despite numerous rumours and theories, which we'll get into a bit later on. So it takes place in Worcestershire on April the 18th, 1943, and it features 4 boys trespassing in Hagley Wood on the grounds of Hagley Hall Estate, then owned by Lord Colburn. The boys are Bob Hart, Tom Millets, Fred Payne, and Bob Farmer from Birmingham. Now, the reason they were in the woods is to get away from all the bombings being done in Birmingham by the Luftwaffe. And because they were poor, they were hoping to go through and supplement their family's income by poaching, finding rabbits or birds' eggs, or whatever they could find, and all while trying to avoid the angry, disgruntled groundskeeper who was on the lookout for such people. So after a while of walking through Hagley Woods, one of the boys, Bob Farmer, spotted a wych elm. Now, wych elm is a tree. It's got a massive trunk, usually very dark in colour, with a load of scrawly, sharp, eerie branches. And then decided to climb the tree. Looking inside, he saw a glimmer of white he thought was a bird's nest. Thinking, jackpot, eggs for the family. Though what Bob found was to change the mood for good. What Bob pulled out was in fact a skull. At first thinking it was an animal skull, though hair crumpled and protruding teeth changed his mind, and the other three, and then he and the other 3 fled and promised never to tell anyone about the incident ever again. That's not what happened, however. Now, for 17-year-old Tom Willets, staying quiet was not easy, and the gravity of what they found was too much, and he told his parents on arriving home. So police arrived, and in the tree they found a woman's skeleton, though minus one hand. And bones being scattered all around the tree in many directions. They also found one cheap imitation gold ring, size 5.5 crepe-soled shoes, and found a small distance away. Cheap clothing hung from the bones, and a piece of taffeta fabric stuffed inside the mouth. Now, Professor James Webster concluded the woman must be around 35 years old. Her teeth were irregular in the upper jaw. She had light brown hair and had given birth at some time in her life. She had been dead for around 18 months. He said she died around October 1941. The professor then stated his findings and concluded it was murder, stating, "I cannot imagine a woman accidentally slipping in there. Neither do I think reasonably for a woman to crawl under that space to commit suicide. Bella would have been placed in the trunk before rigor mortis set in." In July 1941, mentioned in July 1941, a woman's scream was heard in Hagley Wood by a school teacher and a businessman, though nothing came of it. So she was placed in there before rigor mortis. Now, if you have never seen a wych elm, it's large, really, really large. And the fact that Bob had to climb up there to have a look in, look up and see a picture of a wych elm, you'd understand that it's hard enough to climb up there yourself, let alone climb up there carrying a body. The Worcestershire police checked every dentist around the area, though nothing. The police were able to track the shoes, however, to the Waterford Company in Lancashire. They traced all but 6 of the owners, which had been sold at a market stall in Dudley, a small town around 18 kilometres or 11 miles from Birmingham. Now, a police sketch artist released a picture of Bella in what she was wearing. She had a mock imitation wedding ring, striped knitted cardigan, blue crepe-soled shoes, and light brown belt. She also had light brown hair. So the police tried for months and months. They told hundreds of missing persons. Her picture was distributed everywhere and nothing. No one recognised her. No one came forward, and despite all the missing persons, there was no one matching her description. But that's not the strange parts. Strange parts were the messages. So the messages in the form of graffiti, which was scrolled up all around the area where she was found. Now, graffiti being scrolled on areas where a dead body was found makes me think of Elisa Lam. And the graffiti that was found on the water tank where she was found. That was in Los Angeles many, many, many years later. But it's a very interesting parallel. The case went cold for around 6 months with no leads and new information. Then the messages began to show. In Christmas 1943, the most famous of the messages appeared on the 200-year-old Wobbly obelisk at Hagley Wood. Though read in chalk, the very first message arrived written in chalk on the side of a house nearby. It said, "Who put Loser Bella down the Wych Elm?" So the messages appeared to be done by this, and then another message, the most famous one, was one, "Who put Bella down the Wych Elm?" This appeared on a 200-year-old obelisk. Now, it was thought they were written by the same person, but obviously that was never, whoever wrote it was never found. But police did conclude that they thought that it actually, because there was a name, that it was written by somebody who actually either knew Bella or knew what happened. So the theory as to where the name Bella came from could come from the flowers and everything found in Hagley Wood, which we'll get to later. The most famous messages of all of who put Bella down the Wych Elm. Although they were tracked, nothing came of it. And many times, after a short while, the case brought many new theories. One theory came up was dark magic. An anthropologist, Professor Margaret Murray, said, "The fact that her hand was severed and the bones scattered scattered around the tree bore similarities to an occult ceremony, the Hand of Glory." The Hand of Glory is an object, a severed hand, dried and pickled, from a person that was hung, and is said to hold supernatural powers. It's normally the left hand, if you're hung, or else if you're known for murder, it's the hand that actually committed the murder or held the weapon. She also concluded that this death was somehow connected to another case that may involve witchcraft, the murder of Charles Watson, who was stabbed and pinned down to the ground by his pitchfork in the nearby village of Lower Quinton. Hagley Wood, where Bella was found, was associated with belladonna, otherwise known as deadly nightshade, and witch's hazel. So, belladonna, Bella. Could the person who wrote the graffiti on the side of the obelisk and the house just have taken a random name from the fact that belladonna was growing in that area, or did they in fact know her, or again was it just a name they pulled out? We don't know. She also said that Bella being entombed in the tree could have been a ritualistic slaying. I thought that Bella was killed by killed for a crime against a cult, and that she killed because of a crime against her. Maybe she tried to leave the cult, or maybe she tried to rebel. That theory is actually quite strong today. Though police actually believed that her hand and her bones had actually been scattered by animals. The wood animals, I mean, she was up quite high in the wych elm, so if they'd have left her, they put her in there, could the bones have fallen out, or could animals have gone in there and picked the bones and pulled them out? I don't know. I suppose it's possible though. But what kind of animal would climb up there? I mean, she was decomposing, and a lot of animals would have smelt that. But what kind of animals could have climbed up into the wych elm and actually took her bones out? I mean, they could have been gnawed on. It's possible. One of the other theories, obviously, being 1941, and was she was a spy. In 1953, Bala attracted a new line of inquiry. The Wolverhampton Express and Star received a letter from a woman by the name of Anna of Cleveland, who claimed to have info on Bala. And so journalist Wilfred Byford Jones interviewed Anna, who said that Bala was a member of a spy ring looking for munitions factories for Luftwaffe to target. Later, though, Anna was found to be a woman named Una Mussop, and she said her husband in the RAF, Jack Mussop, had information on Bella's death. Mussop said that he had fallen in with a spy ring with a guy called Van Rout, a Dutchman. One night, Van Rout and a woman, maybe Bella, who Mussop said was Bella, picked up Mussop in his car, and then Van Rout strangled and killed the woman. That he said was Bella. Then he changed his story, saying that him and Van Rout had been drinking with Bella. Then they both placed her in the trunk to teach her a lesson. She woke up trapped, couldn't get out, and died. Jack Mussop would go on to die in St George's Hospital, Stafford, before Bella was found. It is said that Bella's death and the skull had to his mental decline. The other guy, Van Rout, was never found, and Mussop's words were dismissed. He died before Bella was found, so it's highly unlikely. I don't really see how death, I mean, maybe the guilt of what he had done all those years ago, if it's actually true that him and Van Rout put her in there, knowing she couldn't get out, or, theory, any other theories, maybe he couldn't live with the guilt of what he'd done. But the fact that he died before she was even found, I don't think he would have found out about the skull, which is probably why his words were dismissed. MI5. Later years saw a man lead Later years saw a new lead that brought new life to the spy theory. A German spy named Joseph Jacobs got captured while parachuting into Cambridgeshire in 1941. He was parachuting in and hit the ground rather hard. He broke his foot. So he was captured. A photo was found on him of a glamorous German actress and cabaret singer Clara Burrell, who he says they were lovers, and she was recruited as a spy by the Third Reich. Later, Joseph was killed by firing squad in August 1941. And anyway, he said that Bella was Clara and that they were, Clara was Bella and that they were lovers. However, Joseph, obviously, I said, was killed by firing squad in August 1941, and Clara could not have been Bella, as Clara was 1.78 metres, 5 foot 10 inches. Bella was only 1.52 metres and 5 foot. And Clara had died in a Berlin hospital in 1942. In August 2014, BBC Radio 4 won a programme that said Bella was a prostitute from Hagley Road. Bella was also thought of as a gypsy, as they lived nearby, and it was thought that she was actually killed by the fellow gypsies that she lived with. Maybe she dishonored them, maybe she wanted to get married, maybe she wanted to leave, maybe she refused to follow the teachings. Another theory was that Bella was a local barmaid killed by a US GI. Another is that Bella was a homeless person who just fell through the cracks. So it's very interesting, this. Obviously Bella's dental records were sent to nearly every dentist to try and find out. She had a rather distinctive overbite and irregular teeth. However, nothing came of this. There is going to be a new documentary. Unfortunately, it was discovered recently that an expert in facial reconstruction had approached the police force hoping to get hold of the actual skull to do a proper cranial reconstruction. Unfortunately, it came out upon this request that the police had actually lost the original skull. It wasn't only the original skull that was missing, all the information is gone too. All the case files, everything about it. There is nothing. So despite this, by the way, again, well done, please. But despite this rather annoying setback, they were able to do a full, complete cranial reconstruction based on pictures of the skull. You can see this picture on YouTube, also on the internet. There is a new documentary coming out, which is hopefully may shed some light on who this girl really was. It might even put a name to her. Whether it's going to answer the question of who put it out or who put the graffiti on it, I don't know. Interesting side note, Joseph Jacobs was the last man convicted of espionage under the Treachery Act in the UK, and he died in the Tower of London. So there you go. I might look into that case. But that's all really. I'm sure there are plenty more theories going around about this. It's quite famous. There are a couple of books about it. There are some documentaries on it. I know this case has been covered before. That's all I've got so far. I will find out anything else, and if there are stories that you'd like me to look up, if there are any cases you'd like me to investigate and do a video on, then please let me know in the comments below. Thank you. Bye.